Get ready to be amazed. Get ready to know things that are usually unknowable. Get ready for an hour of insight and fascinating entertainment with Dr. Linda Salvin. For nearly 3 decades, Dr. Linda has been one of America's most celebrated psychic readers, metaphysical clinicians, and unmatched talk show hosts, bringing insights and solutions to thousands of people worldwide. Pull up a chair, turn it up, and get ready for a visit with the one and only Dr. Linda. And now, live from Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Linda Salvin.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Dr. Linda for the next hour. It's going to be a really good show today because, well, they're all good shows as far as I'm concerned because of who I bring on to entertain you, but they're all the people I've had fortunate moments to share in life, whether it's been on my radio show, private consultations, meeting at conventions, or whatever, through the journey of doing this work for over 30 years. I'm a psychic healer and a medium, and I've been interviewing people, giving readings, healings, channeling sessions for a long, long time. Tomorrow, February 17th, marks the 42nd anniversary of the plane crash I was in that opened me up psychically. And last week I was in New York, and I met a man whose cousin was on that flight. And we talked about divine intervention with this whole thing because his cousin had a spiritual awakening and wrote a book on God as well. My book's coming out. So those that don't believe, that's fine. You don't have to believe. But those that want to believe or try to believe, this is the show where you can get some answers to really understand what life is about, this life and next life, life after death. And that's what we're going to be talking about today is life after death, because I've got my guest today, Diane Goosen, who you will hear her story. Her autistic son had committed suicide at Target many years ago, and she journaled 20 years of his life and put it in a book called The Return of Mikey, where Mikey actually proves that he exists from the other side by some of the things that he's done in life since Diane and the family lost him. But also, if you go to page 247, there's a whole chapter on me having channeled Mikey. We'll talk about that too. But Diane documented the channeling session long after Mikey passed that I brought him in. So without much more prep, let me just bring Diane on. Diane's in Colorado. Hey!
Hey, Linda.
There you are. Welcome to the show again.
Thank
You've
you.
been on the show hundreds of times over the last 30 years, but this new broadcast is video, obviously, as opposed to where it was just audio like real radio was back in the old days. But I'm thrilled to have you here because you and I have stayed in touch forever. And, you've got the new book out. The original book is this, folks. This is the original Return of Mikey. And I was fortunate enough to get the original transcript. It was just typewritten in a notebook. Diane sent it to me. And I introduced her to, I'm even on the back cover here. I forgot about that. Am I on this one too?
Yeah.
Oh, that's how much I read, right? But thank you. But The Return of Mikey is about your son. Your son, Mikey, committed suicide. Your son was autistic.
Yes.
Why don't you tell the story about Mikey, how you and I connected, Mikey communicating after he died, the channeling. Let's just tell the listeners, the viewers, because right now there's not an audience listening. But once it goes up on YouTube, people find it later. And with the meta tags, and they're looking for life after death, or whatever the tags will be, it'll get out there. And you can take the link and use it as a promo yourself as you promote the book. Okay? The book, everybody, is The Return of Mikey by Diane Goosen. Diane was Diane Bucci, but I predicted she was going to marry a man named Scott Goosen, and she did. That's in the book too. Go on. Let's do all the talking.
No, we go so far back. When my son was young, he was 3 when he got diagnosed with mild autism. And back then, it was 1985, and they didn't know a lot about autism. And I researched everything I could find, to find ways to help him. And my dad was a mathematician, and I kind of came from a family where everything was very scientific, and you have to have proof of everything. And I had never, my mom took us to church, to the Methodist church when we were little, and my dad was never really as religious. He was one.
My dad doesn't believe in God.
Right. You got to prove
it all the time. Yeah,
exactly. It's like he was one of those. I neither believe nor disbelieve. I have to wait and see. So we didn't talk a lot about that. But I was always looking for anything medically, anything that was the latest and greatest of help for autism. And I was reading in a medical journal, or it was a science journal. I can't remember. Both of them I took just to find out more about autism, because at the time you couldn't get very much information on it. And there was a study going on about this megavitamin therapy that high functioning autistic people who could verbalize said they were helped by this. It helped their attention span and everything. And Mikey was about 8 years old at the time. And so this is before we had internet, no cell phones, none of that.
I tell people that all the time. I started radio before the internet. Yeah. The internet was 1996.
Yes.
2023. It's a whole different world.
It's crazy. I know. And kids now wouldn't understand what it was.
They don't understand. They don't even know what a phone is. I was with somebody last week who's 20, and I looked at my watch, and she said, I can't tell time. I said, what?
Oh, wow.
The watch, and she could not figure out time because she's only digital. I mean, it's a whole different generation. They can't even read a clock.
Right. Basic stuff that we think is basic. It's just old out of news. But there was a phone number, like a 1-800 number to call to order these vitamins. And there was no web search, you just had to call the number. So I called this number and I explained I had this little boy with autism, and this really nice lady was explaining these megavitamins to me and telling me, how much dose he could take and everything. And then she paused and she said, now how old is Susie? And I was completely taken aback because I hadn't even mentioned that I had another child. And you started laughing and said, you don't know who you're talking to. I'm actually a psychic. And that's how I got to know you. They were one of your sponsors, these multivitamins that I was ordering. And you proceeded to give me a really short little reading. And you said, that's all you're going to get for a free reading. Next time you have to pay. And I did. I did, because I was really amazed that you knew, and there's no way you could have known some of the stuff that you said about me, because we didn't have internet. You couldn't have looked me up in 30 seconds. All this stuff about me. But you know what? What you gave me more than amazement was hope and encouragement to keep fighting the good fight, and putting one foot in front of the other to help my son and be a good mother to my daughter. And that's what I really needed the most at that time. And that's, it really stuck with me. And then I would call you several times a year, and I would have a reading, and you always kind of kept me motivated to believe that there's going to be a brighter tomorrow. And then Mikey was very successful. He went to college and he had a girlfriend and he had his driver's license, and he did all these things that we thought he wasn't going to be able to do, or we were afraid that he wouldn't be able to do. And then at the peak of his success, when he himself said how happy he was, and he would always say, I wish I had known when I was little that my life was going to be so good. I wouldn't have hated school so much. I wouldn't have hated my life so much. And so he was truly happy and shocked all of us by committing suicide, which was actually, he shot himself in Walmart, not in
Walmart. I keep saying Target. I'm wrong. It was in Walmart. Okay.
He had worked before he got his gunsmithing job, and he left a suicide note, which really kind of showed us that he'd been really having kind of like a schizophrenic episode, even though he had never been diagnosed with that. He was having imaginary conversations with people, and he thought,
I do it all the time. No, okay.
Yeah, I do it, and I don't think it's funny. I don't know where he got that from.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm just trying to lighten it up. Go on.
Yeah, no, you're right. But we were all completely shocked at that time, because I could have seen him doing something like that when he was young and miserable in high school, but not at that point in his life. He was 25 years old. He was successful and he was happy, but he had like a delusional episode and killed himself. So of course
Were you in the store with him?
No, I was home. He drove himself there, and we heard about it. They came and told my mom afterwards because he was out at her farm in Shakota, Oklahoma, and they knew him from there. And so she drove to Oklahoma City then and broke the news to me. And it's that moment where your life changes forever, and you think you'll never, things will never be the same again, and you think you'll never be happy again. And right after he died, we started having all these bizarre, weird things happening. And I'm not one of those superstitious people who are like, I wasn't looking for signs, but I was always very scientific, and you start thinking, okay, sometimes, the radio will change stations by itself. Yeah, that stuff happens once in a while. The lights will come on by themselves, or the printer comes on and starts printing out stuff. You have that stuff happen once in a while, but we were all getting bombarded with this weird stuff happening all the time. And at some point you started thinking, well, what really is the probability of this weird stuff happening so much right after Mikey died? The timing was weird. And so I really
became...
Did
it happen within days or weeks? Because usually it's a good 45 days rest period while they transition and get comfortable. But I think Mikey was a little active, wasn't he?
He was immediate. The night he died, a picture fell, his communion picture, which really freaked us out because, of course you're thinking, is he not with God, and I never believed that for a second. But it's weird. It's scary when stuff like that happens, but it was a lot of weird radio stuff. The strangest thing was right after his funeral, which was like 5 days after he died. So it was very soon. We were all in my mom's house at the farm, and we started hearing chicken noises because Mikey raised chickens, but there were no chickens around the house or in the house. And I mean, it was so loud that Susie, my daughter, she said, Grandma, there's a chicken in the house. And that's exactly what it sounded like. And there were 5 of us who heard it. And we're looking, and we finally decided, is it coming from a house plant? But it wasn't, because when you put your ear down to the house plant, it was like above it. It was like from the air around the house plant was this chicken noise that kept making noises. And it was bizarre stuff like that. Dimes, I got dimes all the time. I hear a lot of people get quarters and stuff. I got dimes
from heaven, dimes from heaven.
And the
feathers, you find out totems, Yeah. If you see a feather, I was in New York last week, and I went someplace I had heard about since I was 9 years old at the Brill Building, where they wrote all the songs, the major songwriters. And as soon as it was something in my soul. I always had to see this building. I went last week. I turned around, there were 3 feathers.
That is awesome.
So, yeah, the universe or the spirits talk. So it was my mom, my aunt, and my grandma were all saying, yeah, you're here. Same thing like with Mikey. So Mikey pops up in the plants like a chicken.
Yeah,
it was
making chicken noises. So it was comical things. There was music coming out of a vent in the farm, and it's hard to explain to people that there's not like interference around in this house out in the middle of the farm.
No, you're out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Right. It's not like, oh, that's your neighbors and stuff. There was just so many weird things. I mean, the printer was the weirdest one. My printer, my daughter and I did his eulogy, and I had written out pages of this stuff. And right in the middle of printing it out, it stopped. And I had, I couldn't get it to reprint, and then finally got it to reprint. Well, days later, I'm trying to print out a plane ticket, and that wouldn't print out. And then the next day, I was home alone, of course, and I hear the printer go on in the next room, and it scared the tar out of me because I was noise, and I hadn't been trying to print anything that day. And I go in, and the printer's printing out. I thought it was going to print out the plane ticket, which is the last thing I was trying to print out. And it did not. It printed out a middle page of his eulogy that started off, it was in mid-sentence from the previous page, but that part of the sentence started at the top of the page. He knew we loved us, or he knew we loved him, and Mikey loved us. And I felt like that's exactly what I needed to hear at that, at that moment, because I was having those, thoughts of the guilt of,
Well, you had just lost your son. It's not even a week or two. Hold on. For the people that are just joining, you want to get some water?
Yeah, I got some.
Okay. I'm speaking to Diane, who's been a client and friend of mine since 1995. Her son committed suicide at Walmart with a gunshot wound back in what year? 2008. 8?
Yeah.
Okay. And Diane has written a book called The Return of Mikey, which I'll show right now what that is. So you can go buy it. There's The Return of Mikey. So the book was published first in the mid-2000s. And here's a picture of Mikey.
Yeah, out in the mountains.
Up in the mountains of Oklahoma, right? So
or Colorado. That was Colorado.
Oh, that's Colorado? Okay. Well, I don't know one from another. I've been to Colorado once. I've never been to Oklahoma. But The Return of Mikey is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and everything. And if you want to really reach Diane personally, you can come to me and I can hook you up with her. But we're talking about her son who was autistic, who did commit suicide at the age of 25. And Diane and I have talked forever before and after the suicide and what has happened as far as her adjustment in life as a mother without her child. And still you had Susie, who you're now a grandmother. Things have changed and you're married. We'll get to that in a moment. But it's the story. Why do you think you documented his life for so many years that you ended up with a book about autistic behavior? And it's funny. It's a funny book. Right. There's a lot of sadness because it's your reality, but the humor keeps it going. And yes, we're talking about nutrition. And yes, in today's day and age, I'm doing DNA nutrition. We have a lot of autistic children and adults who are now thinking or talking and behaving better because of the nutrition based on their DNA, which is a customized clinical dose nutritional product, which I'd like to get you and your family on, even with your grandkids. We can talk about that later, and I put it on every show. But nutrition is part of the help that an autistic child needs, especially for brain function. But why do you think you journaled? Were you always a journaler? Did you always write to comfort yourself? I did since I was 14. I'm just curious.
I used to write. The way I got started was I was the president of the Colorado Autism Society, and we put out a monthly newsletter. And when I was running out of material some months, I would write a funny story about something Mikey was doing, and people really enjoyed it. So I started kind of collecting these stories because my purpose, my original intention was to make a book like an Irma Bombeck type book, only from
you succeeded. You definitely succeeded.
Well, yeah, only from a parent with a handicapped child, because back at that time there were no funny books written by parents who had handicapped kids. And I know there are now, which is I'm so grateful for that, because it's like we have stuff to laugh at too. You know, we can laugh right along with the next parent. And so that's how it started. So I had this collection of stories and just never had, really tried to focus on getting them published, because really when he started getting to be a teenager, I thought, I don't want to embarrass him with stories that his mom's writing about him, because he was already self-conscious enough. So I already had a lot of that written. And then when he killed himself, I felt like I need to do this, only I unfortunately have to add on the part where he killed himself. But that was part of his life, that was his life and his death, and then his life
after. That's what makes the story. And The Return of Mikey, the title represents the spiritual aspects of Mikey coming back from spirit.
Yes,
so let's fast forward, because you came to me after he passed away and wanted me to channel him. I said no, because my mom had just died and I did not want to go there.
That's right.
I did not want to open that up. I figured I couldn't do it anymore. However, folks, if we go to page 247, what is there, 10, 12 pages in here?
Yes, there's quite a bit. It was long. Now I gotta put this in first. I'd heard from people like John Edwards on TV or whoever, they say that that the other, the spirits know when they can tell when somebody acts as a medium, and there'll be like 30 people trying to come in to talk. And I completely I knew you were very gifted, and I knew that you could get a hold of Mikey if anybody could, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't somebody else trying to come in. So I told
Diane told Mikey there would be a couple of code words.
Right. We had a secret code,
yep.
and it was his blanket that was really his toy, his best friend. He named his blanket Mrs. Hare, and he used to self-stim with his blanket, which means headbang, not weird things. But well, I guess that could be weird. But he used to sit there to settle himself down. He would make a wad out of his blanket and bang his nose into it. And Mrs. Hare was like part of the family. It was like we couldn't go anywhere without Barbies for Susie or Mrs. Hare for Mikey. And so I told Mikey, Mrs. Hare is our secret code. And right when you called and you started channeling Mikey, you stopped and you said, he's showing me something he's doing. He's bopping his head into something that looks like a blanket, and it's a code between you. And I was like, yes. It
all came through. I mean, I could sit and read the chapter, but I want people to buy the book, Return of Mikey. But we had there were other symbols that you had asked for him to talk about through the channeling. Why don't you talk about what you had talked to him about prior to with me? Because what came through. Go ahead and talk about the channeling, what Mikey and I talked about. You documented all of it. All of it,
exactly. And it was just so funny because I had written down a list of questions, and once when you and I started talking, and then you just took off and started talking and saying, he's showing me this, he's showing me, he likes what you did with his t-shirt, he's laughing at, and I forgot about the questions. I had this page of questions that I never even looked at until I got off the phone with you like an hour later.
I'm looking for that page so I could go over it. So
But then we got off the phone and I looked down at the page and I went, oh shoot, I forgot my questions. But then when I started reading them, I realized he had answered
everything had come through without asking. It just verbalized in its own synchronicity of the gift.
I wondered.
He wants you to be happy. He cries for you and Susie. He visits Susie often. Says, I don't want anybody to worry. Says Susie will be happier this summer. He knows he's having a hard time. She'll be happier. He vacillated, wanted to, then didn't want it, back and forth before by the time he was 25, he knew his lifespan would be short. He says he's an old soul. Don't leave grandma yet. Remember, he wanted to move.
Right away.
Stay right now until she's stronger. She's not strong enough. He kept keep laughing and crying and rolling with the punches. You don't have to do anything until you're ready. He was guiding you. Guiding you. Some stuff has greater memories, emotional connections to stuff. Some stuff is related to someone else who was important to him. Some stuff is just stuff. If you want to give something to Mikey's ex-girlfriend, give her anything you want her to have. No one asked, so it's up to you. Remember that?
Right. Yes, because that was my questions. Do you want me to save? Is there stuff you want me to save, or is there things in particular you'd like me to give someone? But I didn't ask that. And I asked him. Yes, he knew everything that I wanted to know.
Okay, next time you make chili, think of him. Make chili and he'll come to be with you. You are healing. You never really heal. You grow slowly stronger. You will see a few more signs very soon in the next couple of weeks. You still cry out for him. It's not time to come home, except in your dreams. He's playing pranks on you guys. The noises in the house plants are him. All that came through with me not even knowing you had chickens.
Not knowing, yes.
Oh my God. After I hung up with the phone with Linda, I realized I had memorized and forgot to ask the questions I had written down. But as I looked over my questions, it dawned on me that he had answered every one of them. The big flowers, which I'd written as sunflowers, I forgot about the flowers. So I guess that was his way of discussing the flowers, or probably sunflowers. He had so many flowers at his funeral. The blue T-shirt.
He was laughing at the T-shirt. I had bought him an Ed Hardy T-shirt for Christmas, and then he died. So I gave the T-shirt to his dad, and he was laughing that and saying, he's wearing my t-shirt. And he was pointing at his dad saying, he's wearing my t-shirt.
All that came through me being a medium, not that I'm touting my gift, but yeah, I am. That's my show to prove that this stuff is real. I have to prove that this stuff is real because there's so many naysayers out there, and I've been battling this for 30 years, even though with the gift of the internet, there's all these near-death experiences,
Yes.
websites and rooms and shows, and everybody thinks they've got all the answers, and I go to a lot of them and I can't relate, and I think, no, not quite. They think so, but I've been on this higher frequency, not that I'm higher, but I mean, after 3 near-death experiences and a channel, which came after having 100 tumors removed from my hips and thighs. It's a little different than what the commercialization has become out there, which is why I think you and I connect, because you know the legitimacy. Now, this book, The Return of Mikey, also won an award with the Irwin Awards here in Los Angeles about 10 years ago. Diane was awarded a beautiful award for the book. And please go get your copy of The Return of Mikey and watch this woman's journey of raising an autistic child long before the internet and all the people out there could help somebody.
Yes.
That was 85. I was 81 with the plane crash. There was no internet to help me understand why I became psychic or I was out of my body for 4 months or any of this stuff. Now everybody talks about it. But you and I were pioneers in our own way of our own journey. Me with becoming psychic, you as a mom who had an autistic child. We broke ground. We broke ground in our own different journeys. But at the end, between friends and spirit connects all of it, and it's all divine intervention. Just like this meeting I was at last week, the man's cousin was on the plane I was in, and he ended up with a big spiritual awakening. He was Mr. America, and then he went from the Hollywood crowd with Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these people. He wrote a book about God, and he opened up a church. So that plane crash changed a lot of people's lives. And there really is a spirit out there. You're seeing your son come back day after day after day to comfort you, even though you can't hold him physically, but spiritually. Right. There's a fine line between the physical world and the spiritual world, which is why people who have the gift can break through that membrane to get into the other side. It's if heaven, quote unquote, was really light years away, how would I have the ability to communicate? I get it right here on the right side of my head. I tap in. You're right. A lot of people do what I call the party lines. How do you know who you're connecting to? I go for the specific person, and some lead in to confirm I have that soul, rather than, Joe Blow from Wisconsin when I need Mikey from Colorado, right? We don't want you. But it's real. And I stopped professionally in 2018 after 22 years. I channeled for 22 years, a lot of people over a long period of time to the part. It drained me, and I needed more in my life than talking to dead people. I love the gift, and I love helping people, but I needed to get me back in a way too. People don't understand how much it drains and what it takes out of. But I'm grateful I could help you. I'm grateful I'm in your book, but I'm mostly grateful that you've opened doors for other people. So people who have autistic children need to read this book, because it talks about the trials and tribulations of autism. And yes, nutrition is a huge factor in helping the mental or the neurological capacity of the brain. And that's where my DNA nutrition comes in. So if you're listening to this show, please go to lindasalvin.com and go to my integrative health section. My new website's going to be up soon, so you'll see how everything reorganized and the access. And I think I'm going to put the book up on the website as well, so people will be able to link it to you, so people can get a copy of the book. And I'll just make sure that they go to page 247 and see the channels. Right. But I mean, with all fun aside, I mean, you've been through. Look, it's 30 years, 20. I
know. Yes, I feel like we were babies when we met.
You are. Yeah. But let's talk about your love life for a moment, because there was a time you never thought you'd remarry. You never meet anybody. Go through what happened with some of these men you were dating.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, I was like one failed relationship after another. And you start looking at yourself and going, okay, I've got all these failed relationships with men who were completely different from each other, but there's one common denominator, me. And you really you kind of go through this period of deep introspection of what what is wrong with me? You know, what am I doing wrong? And I feel like it's almost like the dark night of the soul, only it lasted for about a decade. And I called Linda, and like I met Scott, who's now my husband, right after Mikey died. And we were a train wreck waiting to happen. He had lost his mom, his dad, and his sister the year before. So he's reeling with so much grief. I have all this grief. And we just clicked when we met, but it just wasn't the time. The timing was not right for us. And anyway, we split up. And of course, then I'm bouncing from one bad relationship to another, unless I was sitting home feeling depressed, which I did that too, you know. And I talked to Linda, and she said, you know, Mikey, she was talking, she said, Mikey's here. And he was, that's what I did. It was his birthday or my birthday.
It was your birthday. Oh my God. I just remembered you were supposed to have a reading on a certain day. And I said I couldn't, or I was sick or something.
Yes.
And I pushed it.
And it turned out to be my birthday. And you called me and you said, Mikey's saying happy birthday, Mom. And I felt like that was meant to be, you know, that it got pushed to my birthday. And, you know, I'm asking Linda, do you think I'm ever going to have, you know, this love in my life? And she said, Mike, she said, you and Scott are supposed to, you're soulmates, you know, you're supposed to be together. It's just not the right time. And she said, Mikey's saying, you know, Scott will come back, but you need to get out right now.
How long were you guys together? 2 years?
We were together for 1.5 years and then split up. I moved back to Colorado. He was still in Oklahoma. And we both had different relationships and both ended up, you know, alone. And then we reconnected. And, you know.
How long of a time span was in between?
5-6 years, quite a while.
A lot of soulmates, no, it's very normal. It's called run and chase, crash and burn.
It's called what?
It's called run and chase. Like you run after each other, you chase after each other, you're together, then you split up. It's not uncommon for the soulmates like this to be like an accordion where it's not the right time. You come in, you can't live without each other, then you can't live with each other, then you got to separate, and then it comes back. And most of the time, you run and crash and burn, the people do get married. So you ended up marrying this man when?
2 years ago. I think it's been 2 years. It's not my fast because I'm happy. And I've never thought I would be this happy and content at this point in my life. And I think a lot of the, you know, when you lose a child, you think you're never going to be happy again. And that you really do. You just don't foresee ever being happy again. Even though I got up every day and pretended to be okay and put a smile on my face for my loved ones, I really didn't think I would be deep down happy and content. And I am. And I'm living proof that you can survive grief. It
changes you. It changes you.
It changes you.
Inside your soul for the loss and the pain and the function. It's a good 3-year cycle before you start to feel normal, especially the first 6 weeks or the first 6 months. It's very ethereal. It doesn't seem real. You're half here, you're half there, you're in different zones. You're crying when you least expect it. You wake up, you can't sleep, you can't eat. Nothing makes sense.
Yes.
It's sloggy, but that's normal. But the thing with Scott, it's the crash and burn and the run and the chase. But even though you were with other people and he was with other people, he never stopped thinking of you. And he would compare his feelings towards them to what he felt for you, just as no matter who you were with out there, you would compare how you felt about Scott, even though you were someone else, and you missed that connection, even though you couldn't figure out what it was. And I would say he's your soulmate, but it has to be at the right time. Now you understand what it means to have a soulmate. It does come back when it's right, in the right time of the universe, like divine intervention, like the man I met in New York, whose cousin was on the same plane I was in. That's the anniversary for tomorrow. I mean, and he wrote a book on God, like I'm writing a book on God. It's like it's too big for words. You can't put it all in words. Although Diane did a great job putting it all in words in her book called The Return of Mikey. Here it goes again, The Return of Mikey. And you want to get the book off Amazon.com or on Barnes and Noble, or call me personally. I'll get you a signed copy from Diane. And we're talking about her son Mikey, who did commit suicide with a rifle at Walmart back in 2008, who was autistic, who was just starting to heal, and at the same time has given more signs of proof that there is life after death,
Mhm.
because as much as he loved life, he's, I think, having a better time on the other side. The book again.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he's having a blast. He's having
He
a
and
blast.
he used to.
Whoops.
That's what's so funny. When he was alive, he used to say, "If I die before you do, I'm going to come back and play jokes on you."
He does.
I mean, he said that when Susie was little, and Susie would say, "Well, whatever you do, don't scare me." And he'd say, "No, it'll be funny, but you'll know it's me." And that's exactly what it was like after he died. It was funny things, that was just like his sense of humor. It
Well,
really
where do you
came.
think he got that from, Mom?
I know. I try.
He got it from you. He got it from you. So between the chickens and the flowers and Mrs. Hare,
Mrs. Hare, yeah,
the blankie,
and the
what else?
T-shirt.
The T-shirt. What
Oh,
else?
there's so many things. I mean, the songs. Like after one of his favorite songs was a song by Phil Collins, "You'll Be in My Heart." It was in, I think, the Tarzan movie, and that's a song that you don't hear very often played on the radio. And then his other song was "Bless the Rains in Africa," and it's amazing how much you hear.
Song. Yeah.
Yeah, you hear him at
Jeff Picaro, who's the drummer of Toto, channels
Mhm.
through.
Oh, is that?
I've been channeling Jeff since he died in 1992. Yeah, the family doesn't believe me, but a lot of people do. Oh yeah, Jeff came to me right after he died.
That is awesome, because
that's Toto. That's Africa. The song Africa.
Exactly, and that was Mikey's favorite place. That's
Wow.
when he was having the cigar. That was in Africa when my mom took him, to Africa as a.
Well, I didn't know that, and look at how that just came full circle.
I know, isn't that? That's what I was thinking of.
Is it not or is it God? There's so many pieces how the universe works, and the synchronicities of life, and all the pieces. You can walk forever, and then all of a sudden the path crosses. It's too big. But if your eyes are open and you're open to spirituality, then you see the connection, and you get out of just buying a new purse or a new car and feeling unfulfilled. The fulfillment's within. You can do all that out there. That's fine, but you still got to find it inside. And Mikey always filled you up.
Oh, he did. And Mikey was he really was an old soul as far as it's simple things make him happy. And I really believe that people who really have a lot of wisdom, they live more simply. They don't need all this stuff. They don't, they do. They love people. And he, with autism, sometimes they don't know how to interact with people, but Mikey loved people, and he wanted just to be around people. And I feel like he was so much wiser than I am. And you have a child you're raising, and you always feel like you're teaching them. And then after he was gone, I realized he was the teacher.
He
taught us how to live.
For him to say, "I'll come back and show you while I'm gone," he already knew. He knew.
Yes, he did, and he did it. And he still does it. And we get little gifts from him. We get things in the mail, not all the time, but usually around the holidays. I'll get an extra little something that I didn't order, but it's addressed to me. I didn't pay for it, and it's something that Mikey would do. He got his sister got a camera when she ordered herself a camera. She got two. And her dad at the time needed a new camera because he lost his. And it seems like the timing is always so bizarre with some of the little things that we get from Mikey. So I always look forward to Christmas to see if he's going to send
That's great. Okay. Well, we'll have to bring him in again at some point. But Diane, I know you've got your kids or your grandkids. But I wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. And I want you to go out and buy the book. Hold on. Whoops. There it is, The Return of Mikey by Diane Goosen, where she documents 20 years of her autistic son's life before and after he committed suicide, and then all of the spiritual shenanigans and messages that the family has received since he died from the afterlife. So it's not just this life and the grief, but what happens after you die. And then, of course, page 247 to 259 is the channeling session she documented of me talking to Mikey, which is in the book. But, Diane, it's like you and I come from a similar soul circle family, which you and I know because we've got so much in common that has kept us together in this weird, wacky world. 28 years, 29 years.
I know.
Talking for whatever brought us here, and to go through all of it. It's 2023. It was 1995, and in a heartbeat, here we are. Older.
Here we are. And I never would have guessed everything that's happened, and yet I am happy and content, and that. Yeah, I have the love of my life. My daughter.
Does it work? Does he know you're doing this?
Yes, he does. I wouldn't let him stop me because I was uncomfortable with it. Isn't that horrible?
I'll have to talk to him someday. So I told you.
Isn't that so funny? Yeah, I can only speak for myself when I say when we were apart, I was miserable. I never forgot it.
I used to tell you he was miserable. I said he'll be back. No, how do you know? I said I'm a psychic, and he came back, and then you married him.
And we're happy.
Yeah, soulmate. You can run to Australia, you can run for years, but when it's inside your soul, that other half of you have to reunite. Soulmates can come together. There's a test in the universe. One runs, the other chases, and if one doesn't come back, they ruin or break the potential soulmate union for that
lifetime.
Okay? Or that lifetime. I have been the runner, where I got so close to the marriage and I freaked out and I ran away. I broke it. And I even wrote a letter to somebody about 4 years ago apologizing from 1982. It was the man of my dreams. Wow. And a friend of mine told me, did you ever write him a letter and tell him why you left? I said, no, because I ran out of fear, not because I didn't love him. I was madly loving him. But I was so afraid he was too good for me. I had him on this big pedestal.
Wow.
I mean, everything I could have ever wanted was right there, but it was right after the plane crash and fire truck, and I'm like, I was a little fragmented. I couldn't say, oh yeah, I'm in love, but my life was a mess. But the opportunity comes, and one chases, one runs, whatever. But when it's right, and the synchronicity and the time of, regardless of how fragmented or where you come from, the dark, the light, the past of all the sexuality or the drugs or the career or the parents or education or travel, whatever the journey has been through life, when those two people's fragments start to integrate and the souls have healed enough, they come back. So you were fragmented because of what happened with Mikey. Scott was fragmented by having lost all his relatives. Never mind who you'd slept with, where you traveled, what you'd studied, work, and all that. You were still broken.
Oh, completely.
You had to heal, even though you needed him, but you got stronger away from him. But by the time you guys reunited, you were both whole enough to make the union, which is why now it works.
And it does. And it's awesome.
I know. And we're happy. I'm happy for you. Diane, again, you want to buy the book, The Return of Mikey. It's out there on Amazon. And it's an incredible journey this woman's been on for life and death and life after death. So do you have anything you want to say as we close out this segment?
No, thank you so much for having me on, Linda. I love you.
I love you too. Back to Colorado. I can't believe we're in the same place I went to that folk festival back in the 90s. Unbelievable.
I know.
Yeah.
It's full circle once again.
Everything's full circle. We'll be in touch. I'll let you go. You go have fun. Say hi to Susie and everybody.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Linda. Bye-bye.
Welcome. Bye, Diane. That was Diane Goosen. Diane, as you heard, and I go back to 1995 when she came for some nutritional products to help her autistic child, which I now have DNA products, people. It's a DNA nutritional product that is based on swabbing your cheeks. It goes to the lab. No, it doesn't go to the government. It goes to a private company, and you get 18 genes documented on a chart that state what your genetic code looks like, and then there's a customized clinical dose nutritional product. I take it twice a day. Everybody takes it twice a day, and you start healing. But the autistic people are starting to see communication, stability, more consciousness, just like in 1995 when Diane came for a different type of nutritional product back then to help her son, who, as you heard, committed suicide at Walmart. It's in the book, her whole journey of raising an autistic child before it was like easy to find information, and then channeling him, which I did, and then what has happened and all the signs. You want to read this book. You'll have a good laugh. You'll cry, but you have a good laugh. Jonathan, I'm going to bring you on for a moment. Let's see where Jonathan is. Also in Colorado. There's my assistant editor, Jonathan, and I go back to 2007. So you just met a neighbor of yours. How are you doing?
I did, doing good. A little bit of congestion. Feeling not under the weather, but energy's not full strength, so I'm
It's
kind of
still
laying back
winter.
here.
It's still winter. Everybody's got something. But I want to thank you for getting the images of Mikey up here because I think it really helped, especially with the book. This is an amazing family. She's a strong woman, a lot of pain, but a lot of funny situations with Mike from the other side playing games and showing that it's real. It's really real. So people, if you've lost a loved one and you want to available for challenge sessions, you can go to my website, lindasalvin.com, send me an email, and I will respond. I am limiting as to who or what I channel. Somebody asked me to channel their dog the other day. I said, no, I don't want to channel the dog. Even though I can feel the dog and I know the pain and the grief, but I don't feel like talking to all dogs and cats. Some of them I do. Some I do. But, the nutrition will help every single person because we all come from a DNA background. Everybody's made of DNA. And Greg Braden, I'm sorry, analyzed DNA, and the DNA molecule breaks down to say God eternal within the body. That's how small the molecules are, but it's all about God. It's all about God. I'm going to go to Wicks of Wisdom for just a moment and show a little blurb. I'll be right back. Jonathan, don't go away.
Use this set of candles to assist in strengthening the immune system, heal from various ailments, enhance general health and well-being, and target and help heal specific health issues. They can expedite the healing process, and they're great to use before and after surgeries, and it can encourage physical, emotional, and spiritual healing.
So my candles work like a prescription for your soul. There's 3 candles per set. Each set comes with 4 bottles of essential oil. There's petitions that I dictate the words that go on the paper that get burned in the flame. There's herbs, and there's powders that are imported from outside the United States. And I created Wicks of Wisdom in 1999. I've had people get married, win lawsuits. You can watch some of the shows here on the YouTube channel. One girl was kept out of jail for 20 years. She didn't get sentenced to jail as a result of using the candles. I've had people heal from amazing illnesses with the candles. I've seen people buy real estate. One of my client's sons passed his bar when he took the bar for law with the candles. The candles work like a prescription for your soul. You mentioned the show, you get a 15% discount if you go to lindasalvin.com. And we've got Joseph that says depression, the original 4G network, losing contact with God, losing interest in goals, succumbing to the goblin of self-pity. It's a little more than that, Joseph, especially if there's been PTSD or especially if you're coming in from a psychological perspective. I'm going deeper on a spiritual perspective. There's so many ways to look at God, spirituality, and the synchronicity of things from Dr. Carl Jung. If you go into religion, which I do not tout religion, there's over 3,200 religions on the planet. You can look at it psychologically as to what depression is, but not everybody can come out of depression, which is anger with no enthusiasm. Yes, you've got the right words, but it's not necessarily all put into a simple box where people can just pop out of the boxing ring. Jonathan, so
Yes.
I can hear you, I can't see you. One of these days you got to bring yourself back on with the video so we can see where you're at.
Sure.
And join the show. I think we're going to wrap it up, and you can edit if you think it needs editing, and we'll send Diane her copy. But again, folks, the name of the book is The Return of Mikey. There you go. You can get it on Amazon. Diane wrote the book of 20 years documenting her autistic child who committed suicide and how he's been showing his presence from the other side to the family now in Colorado. So Is it odd? Is it God? Is this all there is? Is this all there really is to life, that we see the physical aspects? No, there's a spiritual aspect that goes beyond into a different dimension. You can analyze every single aspect that you want, but the spirit still holds true, whether it's in a love life situation like with Diane, after years of going back and forth with the run chase of Scott, they ended up married as I predicted. She even put it in the book at the very end. She said that she added it, she re-edited the book where she said, as Linda predicted, Diana Scott reunited and married after 10 years, or 10 years later. So get her book, learn about Mike, learn about life after death, learn about channeling, and learn about yourself. I'm going to say good night, goodbye, good day, good morning, wherever it is, whatever time it is you're listening to this. Email me, lindasalvin.com. Visit the website, call for an appointment, order your candles, and if you have a testimony or you want to be on the show, let me know. I'm pretty booked up for the next couple of months. And there's some changes coming with a lot of surprises, which I will be more than happy to discuss as they unfold. And the surprises. I have a lot of surprises I'm very happy about. Anyway, have a good night, everybody. Jonathan, where's that outro so we can say goodbye? Here we go. And you have a good week, and we'll talk soon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's program with Dr. Linda. Need a breakthrough of your own? Ready for answers or insights nobody else has? Reserve your own one-on-one in-person chat. Dr. Linda isn't just for other people. Dr. Linda gets results for you. And it's easy. Contact details are on screen now. Just click on lindasalvin.com or call toll-free 888-509-1077. That's lindasalvin.com or toll-free at 888-509-1077.